Again, I'd like to thank the organizers for inviting me. It's been great to be here and very inspiring, and I've already got some new collaborators, and we're going to write a grant on large data set analysis. So doing what women do best, which is collaborating. So I'm an assistant professor. I'm a tenure-track professor at McMaster University. I became a mother at the same time I became an assistant professor, so it's almost exactly the same time. So for me, it's hard to distinguish my experiences with becoming a parent with my experiences from becoming a faculty member. And overall, I have to say my experience has been one of nothing but positivity. I work in a department that seems to be very inspired to promote women in diversity within the group, and has been nothing but supportive, and I have nothing negative to say. And although certainly, of course, there are challenges, I was really lucky to have a PhD mentor who really kicked me in the butt until I learned how to speak the speak and talk the talk, and fake it if I didn't feel it. So instead of commenting on my challenges, I'd like to just make a comment on why I think it's so important, and why I think it's excellent that we're all here today. Because, for me, really not having women I think of as the canaries in the coal mine of diversity. So when you look around the table and you realize you're not hearing 50 or 51% of the population's opinions and perspectives, I think that's really a problematic and really impoverishing fact. And so I'd like to give you an example. I teach a fourth-year immunology course, and the first lecture I do is on the immunology of youth. And basically I describe how some of the compromises that humans have had to make to have babies who have big heads and are very hard to gestate, it came at the expense of the development of the immune response, and that sort of perpetuates throughout life and throughout our whole lives. We're sort of hampered by the concessions we had to make to survive childbirth, immunologically speaking. So personally, I don't really see this as, I don't teach this because it's a radical feminist act, although I kind of like to think it is. But I teach it because I think to understand immunology, you have to understand evolution and the compromises that our body has made. And inevitably, the comments I get back from my students is that this is, really great stuff, and they never heard of it before, and they never thought about that before. And I think to myself, this is not rocket science. If you want to learn immunology, you have to learn how the human immune system is shaped. And yet, this is a perspective they've never heard, and they've never heard that perspective because they've never had an instructor like me. And of the 12 instructors in that course, or the 12 speakers, there's only one woman, and I think that there's probably some correlation to that fact. And prior to this year, there were no women for the last 7 years teaching that course. So I think, not having a diverse faculty is really an impoverishing experience, and having diverse and having women represented is an enriching thing. And I think women have to be the vanguard, and we have to be the canaries in that coal mine, because once you start looking around the table and realizing all the voices you're not hearing of those 50% of the women, it's impossible not to start wondering what other perspectives you're not getting. And we've discussed diversity issues, but I also think another thing to think around is, if you create a workplace where women who have to take time off to do those amazing things that women do, like have babies and feed them, you start building a workplace to accommodate that, and you start wondering, well, what about all those other people who are born into bodies who, may not be in perfect physical or mental health? And so it's sort of a cycle of building and bringing these perspectives back. And ultimately, although I think there's a social justice perspective to having women and everyone well represented in science, and I think there's sort of an economic imperative, ultimately I think it's important because I'm selfish. And the things I would like to see in my lifetime, or at the very latest, my children's lifetime, are things like a cure for cancer, dealing with climate change, despite the fact it's apparently not a problem in Canada, and renewable energy sources. I quite fancy no more disease in the developing world. These are things that are really important to me, and I don't really care which brain brings about the change. But I do believe that the brains may be housed in the bodies of women or people who have obstacles to participating fully. And because I'm committed to having these changes effected in my lifetime, I have to be committed to promoting the status of all of us, really, and getting a diverse perspective. I think, it's really important that we be loud and vocal about things that interest us, be they, health conditions that affect one's ethnicity, or challenges due to having babies or taking time off for that sort of thing. All these perspectives are important perspectives, and actually I can't stress enough how important it's going to bring all those voices to the table to answer all these big problems. And so this is why I'm personally committed to this cause, and I think this is an important conversation to have.